moment. As always, with these types of situations and these investigations, is that I'm going to tell you what I know based upon the preliminary investigation that's been conducted up to this point. Everything is subject to change based upon additional witness interviews of the officers, the physical evidence that we find at the scene, etc. But I think it's very important that we get out as much as we possibly can to tell you all, and through you tell the public what happened. But everybody has to keep in mind that this is preliminary and it is all subject to change as the investigation continues. So what we know is that about 3:40 a.m. this morning, the St. Petersburg Police Department was dispatched to a vehicle hit and run. It was an unattended vehicle that was struck in the area of 13th Avenue North and 50th Street. The bumper to the suspect vehicle was laying in the roadway, and the vehicle left the scene. So there's a car parked on the street. It was hit by a suspect vehicle. The bumper came off, it's laying in the roadway, and there's a tag on the bumper that's laying in the roadway from the suspect vehicle. The St. Petersburg Police Department's called. The officers ran the tag. The tag came back registered to a Mary, and the last name is Spandoudis, Spandoudis, with an address of 1225 58th Street North, apartment 204A, which is the apartment complex directly behind me. The officers, because it was a hit and run and having the bumper at the scene, first came here to the apartment, knocked on the door because they wanted to find out before they went to the scene if it was a stolen car or who was driving the car, or find out more about it. So they knocked on the door here and they got no answer, and it didn't look like anybody was there. The officers went over to the scene at 13th Avenue North and 50th Street and conducted their investigation. Based upon that investigation, they came back over here to the apartment behind me, at 1225 58th Street North, apartment 204A. They knocked on the door again and did not get any answer. They used their flashlights to look in the window. They saw in there that there was a wheelchair, they saw some crutches, and they saw that the mail was stacked up outside. And they then called and were able to determine that Mary Spandoudis, whose residence this is, doesn't live here now. She's in a nursing facility here in St. Petersburg. They were able to contact her, and she said that her son, Gus, same last name, Spandoudis, who's a white male, date of birth of 7/25/59, he's 63 years old, that he lives here and that he's disabled. And the last time that she had any contact with him was this past Thursday on Thanksgiving Day. She was concerned because nobody had any contact with him. They described what they found, which was the mail stacked up. There was no answer, the wheelchair being there, the crutches being there, and she was concerned for his safety due to the lack of communication and the circumstances that were observed. She asked the officers to go in and check on his welfare, to check on Gus and make sure that he was okay. The officers again tried to make contact by knocking on the door, announcing their presence as police officers. They didn't get any response. They got a maintenance person from the apartment complex who tried to use a key to gain access. They couldn't do that. The person couldn't open the door, so they called the St. Petersburg Fire Department. The St. Petersburg Fire Department came over, and the St. Petersburg Fire Department arrived here at about 6:10 a.m. And they were able to open the door. It was a forced entry to the door to open the door. Again, the officers identified themselves, went into the apartment. When they went into the apartment, didn't see anybody in the living room area, and they're announcing themselves, nobody's coming out. They rounded a corner into the bedroom, and as they rounded the corner into the bedroom, they saw Gus Spandoudis sitting in a chair. Gus Spandoudis was sitting there, made a comment to the officers that he wanted to commit suicide. The officers knew that there were other people in the apartment because they could see some feet and legs in an adjacent bedroom. So they had multiple people in multiple rooms, and there's two officers. The officers that were here and that went inside, the first is St. Petersburg Police Officer Jace Morrow, M-O-R-R-O-W, and the other one is James DeMaria, D-E-M-A-R-I-A. Officer Morrow was keeping an eye on Gus Spandoudis, and there's another person who was in the apartment who came outside, came out of the bedroom, and that is Dominic Messina, M-E-S-S-I-N-A. He's a white male, 9'10" of 93. So Officer Morrow is trying to deal with both Spandutis and Messina at the same time, while Officer DeMaria is dealing with another subject, Michael Redman, 42492, who's in another back bedroom. So he's keeping an eye on both of them. They're trying to figure out what they have. At first, Officer Morrow did not see Spandutis with a gun in his hand. He was making statements about wanting to commit suicide. And then as he's going back and forth between the two subjects, Spandutis takes a gun out. He had it someplace, either tucked down in the chair or someplace. He picked the gun up and pointed it at Officer Morrow. Officer Morrow told him to drop the gun. He refused to drop the gun and raised it again at Officer Morrow. Officer Morrow fired, and Spandutis is deceased. So that's what we know at this point. It was a hit and run that turned into a check on the welfare. As the officers go in, Spandutis is sitting in the chair. At some point, he produces a gun. It looks like to me, and I'll have Sergeant Cindy give you a photograph of it. It looks like it's probably a 4-inch barrel 22 with black grips on it that he pointed at Officer Morrow. Again, Officer Morrow fired in defense because he told him to drop the gun, and he kept raising the gun at Officer Morrow. The other two people, Messina and Redman, are witnesses at this point. I don't know that there's any criminal action on their part, other than probably one of the two of them was driving the car that was engaged in the hit and run. So we're conducting the hit and run investigation, which is separate from this check on the welfare that turned into the officer-involved shooting. So that's what we know at this point. Again, we're going to continue to conduct witness interviews, look at video, physical evidence. Anything changes, we'll let you know. I don't anticipate that we'll have any more updates probably until tomorrow, and that would probably only be if the facts change at all and there's something more that we need to get out.
How's that hit one?
What's that?
The hit one big one.
It was unattended vehicle. Unattended vehicle. So it was a car that was parked on the street. So whoever was driving the car, probably one of those two other guys, probably not Spandutis, it was probably one of the other two. And we found the car. The car is parked with the bumper missing on it in an alley about 2 blocks to the south and to the west, or to the east here. So we found the car, and they probably did a hit and run, came back here, parked the car in the alley, went to the apartment, went inside, locked the door. When the cops knocked on the door, they didn't answer.
So at this point, you don't know who committed or who did the hit and run?
No. It's probably one of those two, but we haven't determined that at this point.
They all live here.
So the one guy, Spandutis, lives here. Messina does live here. And Redman, he doesn't live here, but he was, quote, staying here. The last address that we had for Redman was over on the East Coast in Martin County in Stuart, Florida. But we really don't know much about him. Again, we're going to be conducting interviews with them, and we'll find out more information. But Messina does live here, apparently, with Spandutis.
The shooting happened on body camera?
There is body camera video. I haven't seen it yet. Again, that's part of what I'm telling you before we have an opportunity to even see that or to conduct in-depth interviews of anybody. So we'll be looking at the body camera. There is body-worn camera video, though, yes.
Officers on leave, administrative.
Well, normal protocols are the normal protocols, I'm sure, will be followed by the St. Pete Police Department. Anybody have anything else?
Any history in terms of mental illness and Spandutis' part?
We haven't gotten there yet. I don't
Okay.
know is the answer to that.
Yeah, you know if there were any previous calls here?
Don't know. Again, all preliminary. That'll certainly be part of the investigation. We'll want to know everything that we can find out about Spandutis, about Messina, about Redman, criminal histories of mental health issues with all of them, any prior calls for service. All of that will be part of the investigation. But again, this is only right now a couple hours old.
Do you know if when you reached out to the person who owns the home who's in the nursing facility, were they concerned because there was mail stacked up, or is that what triggered that concern?
All the above. The officers communicated to her, and again, that is Gus Spandutis' mother, Mary Spandutis, who is in the nursing home, and they communicated what they saw there with the mail stacked up. Again, there were some other indicators that we're still trying to flush out that there was a problem in there. I don't want to discuss that at this point because, again, it's preliminary about some things that they saw that indicated that he might have been deceased in there or in trouble, medically in trouble in there, that he was having some sort of a medical issue. And there were 3 or 4 things that were said to her, and the fact that she hadn't heard from him, which was unusual for her not to have heard from him since Thursday, since Thanksgiving Day, which led to her concern, and she asked the officers, please go in and check on my son. So that's why they were doing it.
Has she been notified now?
What's that?
Has she been notified now?
Yes.
What was he handicapped? How? What was his handicap?
So I don't know. Again, I don't know other than he was sitting in a chair. I can tell you from being in there, the wheelchair was in the living room area. The crutches were out there. So it looked like he was ambulatory to some degree. How much, I don't know.
What type of vehicle was involved in the hit and run? Is it they're photographed in the bumper in front of the Range Rover there, is that it?
No. It's I've got it, but it's the vehicle was registered here anyway. You can't see the vehicle from here. It's a few blocks away.
Did the mom say that he was despondent in any way?
They're interviewing her right now to get that information. They're in the process of interviewing her as we speak. All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
All right.